everyone, I am an expat living and working in South Korea. Today, I'm talking about why you need to think carefully before you use these two words in South Korea. And those are thank you and sorry. And we are going to talk about why thank you and sorry are double-edged swords in South Korea. And I really wanted to talk about this because I haven't even seen English-speaking Korean people talk about this on social media, and I thought it was kind of important. And I have talked about all of this with my hashtag Korean boyfriend TM to make sure that I was not making anything up or like off base on anything. So know that this was run by hashtag Korean boyfriend TM. I also want to say, if you don't relate to this video and everything's been peachy for you in South Korea and like nothing you do gets like picked apart, then you might be actually experiencing a positive discrimination as a foreigner where you just randomly get treated better than everyone else, and it has nothing to do with your looks or anything. It can just be random. A lot of people think it's all about pretty privilege, but if pretty privilege is like that important in Korea, then I'm so freaking ugly. A lot of times I noticed that the positive discrimination can just like at work especially, and in like social groups with Korean people, is so random who they decide to give positive discrimination to. So you have to think carefully before you say sorry or thank you in South Korea, especially if you're in a social circle or at work. This is something that is so built into the Korean language that it doesn't change when the language changes when you're talking to Korean people. So even think about this. When you say thank you in Korean, the response is yes or okay. Same in English. In Korea, people say yes or okay, even though that would be considered passive aggressive by like native English speakers. We hear that. You would never think of saying you're welcome in Korean because it comes with the insinuation that you've inconvenienced me. It's ironically passive-aggressive, the same way that saying yes or okay is to us English speakers. To reiterate this, in English, in Korea, people say thank you, yes, or thank you, okay, in both English, and then in Korean it's 감사합니다, 네, 감사합니다, okay. If you would say there is a you're welcome in Korean, people don't use it because it comes with the insinuation. Again, it's like kind of passive aggressive. Whereas in English, thank you, yes, or thank you, okay, is considered, the yes and the okay would be considered passive aggressive. You can see this is setting up international places for like all kinds of issues, like hagwons and schools. Like, teachers could have a lot of issues with each other over this. You're already seeing the trouble, right? And even though people learn these phrases early on when they're learning English in Korea, they still feel afraid to say you're welcome when they start speaking English with native English speakers because their native language is Korean, and that shapes how you think about things and how you feel about things. So, for example, apparently in Germany, people also don't say you're welcome. They say it's nothing or something like that. And also in Germany, I heard that people only say I love you on their wedding day. So like, for example, it's just something I heard. So, you know, that would make it like difficult for like an American. Americans always say I love you. Probably because of the violence in the country. But Americans always say I love you and then be very affectionate. Even if they have like German heritage. So yeah, those people would have a misunderstanding, right? I think it can be the same with Koreans and native English speakers. But you have a question to ask. You just have a question to ask that needs to be answered. You're in an unwinnable, impossible position. Do I acknowledge that I've inconvenienced this person and give them a reason to get annoyed at me? Or do I not say thank you and pretend like it didn't happen, and pretend like I didn't inconvenience them? And it's also rude not to say thank you. Even if you just say, hey, do you know, like, I don't know, like, what's the date? Thanks, right? That's gonna be like, oh, you asked me what day it was, and you owe me for that. Like, no joke. The smallest kind of question, or like, hey, do you know how the printer works? That's gonna be something that you later like owe that person for. And sometimes saying thanks actually makes it worse, but you also are gonna be considered rude if you don't give thanks. So it is kind of an unwinnable position to have a question at work. And I still don't have an answer for this situation at work because I am a little bit shy and also kind of a people pleaser. So I always say thank you. I don't know, it's just how I was raised. So people get like annoyed. And also when you say thank you, then people think they have kind of like something to hold over you. That's the other thing. So yeah, it's put me in like bad positions to just be like polite and friendly to people at times. And I want to make a note that this does not really apply to like restaurants and shopping and stuff like that, and like strangers. It applies to social circles, which are very complicated in Korea, and more like your office work or like social group. And now I'm going to talk about sorry. So I'm going to start with an example. So let's say you're at work and you made a mistake, like you didn't print enough copies of something, of like a quiz, and a student was wrongly marked absent by somebody else, or you just forgot. Of course, the desk teacher or the people like you've inconvenienced in this situation, the people who are helping you out, maybe your co-teacher, would much rather you be perfect, a perfect magical robot. But you aren't. Whether it was your mistake or theirs, this is your problem. So you have to apologize to whomever you've inconvenienced, even if it's their fault. Because saying thank you in that situation would not go over well because you made the mistake, even if you didn't. So you have to apologize. But also, again, that's giving them something to hold over you later on. And the difficulty is that an apology is also an admission of guilt in Korea, especially at work. So basically, they can write it down in your like HR file that you made a mistake, and you could even be like fired or held accountable for anything that you apologize for. And at times, yes, that goes to printing out too many or too few copies of something. So, and needing like somebody to help you fill in the copies or like something like. And here's the difficult part. If you apologize, people will like you less because you are admitting a mistake to them, and they don't like people who make mistakes. The route that many Korean people go, and this drives so many foreigners crazy, myself included, is defending yourself even if you know that you were in the wrong or you were the one to make a mistake. And this doesn't work for foreigners. So because of the social hierarchy, like you'll find managers do this all the time. And when they're depending on your co-teacher, like they might do this too. Desk teachers do this a lot because they don't want to get fired. But yeah, managers always do this. They defend their mistakes, pretend like they didn't make a mistake, or like lie that they didn't do that instead of apologizing, because these people don't want to be seen as less than, so they tend to be like really insecure about it. So if you choose to go that route, you could get kind of angry and say like, I printed out that many copies because the attendant said that that person would be absent, and then they showed up, whether or not it did. I don't recommend that. I don't like conflict. I just go home and complain about it to my boyfriend. A personal example for me, I had a student leave my room. My co-teacher was teaching in my room. My student left the room forgetting a bag and a keychain that he won from the school. And then the desk teachers they took it away. And then she kept blaming me for it and saying that I had to pay for it. But then she offered to split the cost. And I was like, no, this is on you. I gave him the backpack and the keychain. But because the social hierarchy so, harsh, I was just like, I guess I'll pay $20. But, I was definitely going to report them if they had done that. It was theft. It's theft because it was in no way my responsibility to pay for that backpack and the keychain. So if you apologize to these types of people, like my co-teacher, and she's very, very like in the Korean social circle, she is not like familiar with how foreigners are. Not my current co-teacher, my last co-teacher, might actually be seen as a weakness and admitting to fault, and it could be like used against you, and they might keep punching. They see a weakness and they keep like punching at that. So you have to be really careful, and again, it could be used to fire you if they just feel like it on a certain day. And know that if you are a foreign woman, you will probably never ever get an apology from anyone ever, because foreign women are at the bottom of a hierarchy. One time a taxi driver took me to the wrong spot and he was just like, whatever, you can walk. And then I didn't know because he didn't say any apologies. So I didn't know what he was saying. So confusing. So basically, what you need to know is that sorry and thank you are both admitting fault. Thank you is admitting fault in Korean social circles. And what Koreans tend to do instead is shift blame, deny, etc., which causes a lot of issues. Like, they have a lot of conflict in their office places because this is how it is. But as foreigners, know that you're not allowed to get away with this. Like, if you don't apologize, then it will be reported to your manager that you're like disrespectful, like hard to work with, maybe even like stuck up or something like that. And you might just be like really shy, but you have to apologize for anything that goes wrong, even if it's not your fault. So thank you for watching my video. I hope you found this interesting or like helpful or informative if you come to Korea. Just know that sorry, thank you, and you're welcome, you have to use like really, really carefully, or like know the consequences of them and how things work. So, like, for example, you don't say thank you when somebody helps you in the rough situation. Like I said, like if you didn't have enough quizzes because attendance was marked incorrectly by somebody else, you still have to say sorry. You don't say thank you for the help. But if you ask somebody a question, you have to say thank you. Well, if you ask for a small task, like if you just ask somebody to answer a question for you that they would like know, I recommend you just don't say thank you, even though it hurts physically, because we were all taught to say thank you. I recommend you just say okay and just go away, because it's not worth sometimes like getting pushed down to the bottom of the hierarchy. I've been like textbook bullied at work, and I never ever should have said sorry or thank you for anything ever at that place. Like, it made it so much worse. So that's my advice and interesting insight into Korean socialization. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Bye!